So with that, I would like to welcome everybody today, this morning, or this afternoon, evening. As I said, my name is Jenny Barron. I'm professor in agriculture water management at the Swedish University of Agriculture Sciences, and I will share this session today on behalf of the Science Program Committee of the CV World Water Week. So this is one of the ordinary seminars of the main program, and this year is, of course, under extraordinary conditions. Usually we meet in a big hall at the World Water Week here in Stockholm, but this time we have an alternative way to do it, and I'm very pleased and very happy to see so many of you joining us here today in this session on All Aboard Water for Inclusive Health and Food Security. This session is, as I said, one of the main series of the CV World Water Week seminars, and it's co-convened by the Latin America Development Bank, CAF, and the Catholic Relief Services. And I'm very happy to welcome both our co-conveners on board tonight, or today. The focus of this seminar, first of all, I would just like to say some house rules. So please, all of participants, if you can mute your microphones, that's very helpful for the presenters. And if you have questions, please just write them in the chat box and we will try to answer. We will facilitate your questions in the space of time we have to the relevant presenters. I also have a helping hand here, our young SPC member, Arturo Salazar, who will help us to pose the questions to the presenters. The focus of this seminar is on the interlinkages of water, food, and nutrition security for the most vulnerable, and how to develop solutions that are resilient under climate change and internal external shocks, including COVID. It actually follows on the two seminars in the previous sessions we had one on WASAG Working Group Water and Nutrition, and we had one on water security for under COVID that was taking place at the hour before, and perhaps you have attended some of these as well. The purpose is to share experience on how to build resilience for the most vulnerable populations who are doubly burdened by water security, both for wash and health, as well as for food and nutrition security. And today, these combined burdens of water and livelihoods are accelerated by the immediate shocks, such as COVID, of course, but also on the long-term likelihood of increased shocks related to climate change. We will hear three examples to address water, wash, food and nutrition security for rural poverty affected populations. And the first presentations today will be on the Mi Agua program in Bolivia that have evolved over more than 15 years to couple water management with food and nutrition perspectives. And our second presentation is on water smart agriculture, and it will be an example that shows that through supporting farmer practices in soil and water management, you can tackle systemic rural livelihood challenges of recurrent droughts and dry spells and sustain poor land management. And finally, we will have one presentation from a national NGO initiative, Water for People, which is solutions-oriented and very on-the-ground practical examples, how to protect upstream's sources of water through nature-based solutions and technical engineered infrastructure in rural Africa, highlands of Rwanda. And finally, we'll have a brief pitch talk from the Global Framework for Water Security in Agriculture, the WASAG Working Group on Water and Nutrition, that is highly relevant for continuing the dialogue of this session in the future. And without further ado, I would like to share with you the presentation of the Latin America Development Bank, CAF, and Osvaldo Valverde and Franz Rojas. Osvaldo, would you like to say some few words before I put your presentation on?
Good morning to everyone. I am a water and sanitation specialist in CAF. And nice to meet you. And Franz, perhaps.
Thank you very much. We are very happy to be here. You know, as CAF Development Bank of Latin America is working in most of countries in Latin America. So I think this program is iconic, as I expect you can see from the slide. So, and we are keen to answer any questions you might have after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And now I will share my screen and share your presentation.
Divided in 4 parts: Bolivia and the rural water sector, Miagua programs, growing up with safe water, and next steps. Government of Bolivia and CAF on 2011 agreed to start a water program project in rural areas due to low rural water coverage, 51%. The program do not set the maximum investment per capita as others. The program changed the term and allows budget allocation up to 300,000 per municipality. On the right, we can see the state of the rural water coverage between 2001 and 2011 with a low rise in percentages. Later, we will show you the evolution on coverage with the support of programs such as Miagua. We can see extreme poverty index 2011, 24%, and 2018, 16%. Now we can see the structuration of the Miagua program. The implementing entities Ministry of Environment and Water in Bolivia. It's Maya in Spanish. The cost of program is $112 million. CAF loans is $94 million, and implementation in 2011 and 13. Characteristics water services at household level for improved water resources, community mobilization, focused on project. This is the DESCOM, Desarrollo Comunitario. Supervision on some milestones. Irrigation projects coming along with water projects. Similar as Miagua does, like better definition of stakeholders' roles, improved supervision with increased milestone, community mobilizations along with to the water committee. This is operational and commercial skills. Miagua phases 1 to 5 has benefited more than 2 million people with more improved access to water supply. Project of low complexity but greater impact of families benefited to the provision of drinking water at household level. 339 municipalities in all countries. In this context, CAF is the main multilateral partner in the sector with more than $800 million approved between 2009 and 18. In this slide, we can see more phases of Miagua, 4 and 5, with similar like Miagua 4 or 2, better quality assurances, chlorinate, for example, and we have a pilot program on the household level. In all phases, it has a community mobilization or community development, DESCOM in Spanish, with a compromises like a participation of the civil society, organizations.
Please mute your microphones.
In drinking water projects to approve project design, tariffs, water committee organization, and finally community responsibilities on the water system. Evolving to a more structured project by including a post-construction phase in which operation and maintenance issues are straightened for sustainability of water services. This slide, we can see a normal cycle project. First of all, project preparation, TA and conclude and improve studies. Second one, construction with an infrastructure, community mobilization, capacity building to water communities, with adaptation measures, protection and water sources, measures in phases 4 and 5. Sustainability, action after 12 months of construction completion with a post-phase. Finally, water quality and hygiene. With a problem of nutrition, along with water project, CAF conduct an impact study. In this slide, we can see the impact of the program. More than 2 million beneficiaries, new and improved. Between new connections and renovations, 240,000. We have 10,000 new sewerage connection, 10,000 public water taps, and finally, more than 3,000 number of projects. On the map on the right, we can see the evolution of the program and how it distributed throughout the territory. Between 2011 and today, rural water coverage increased more than 25 percentage points, of which the program supported more than a half of this increase. But the most complicated is yet to come: coverage in dispersed rural areas. We hope that this small but complicated coverage can occur in the following years. CAF will continue to support the government with the remaining 20%, and it will imply to cover also dispersed rural areas with on-site facilities, alternative studies for rural areas, and other solutions. We have a pilot program for upscaling, growing up with safe water, in Spanish, creciendo con agua segura. This program has the objective of implement a multi-sectoral intervention model for promotion of secure water, hygiene, health, nutrition, and child development practices, with the Ministry of Environment and Water, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, cooperation agencies, and CAF. This program has a specific goal. First of all, promote key practices of hygiene, sanitation, health, nutrition, and early childhood development at home in areas of the pilot program, with emphasis of the first 1,000 days by strengthening capacities of social actors, teachers, staff of health, water and sanitation providers, and others. Second one, implement WASH, interventions in schools and health facilities. And finally, systematize evaluate the process for upscaling and inclusion in future activities of water supply projects. Bolivia has made important achievements in reducing the prevalences of chronic malnutrition or stunting. There are departments with stunting prevalences exceeding 20%. Potosí, Oruro, Chuquisaca, for example. Gaps remain on urban and rural walking till and access to basic services. And according to latest demography and health survey, ETSA 2016, the prevalence of chronic malnutrition is more than double at households with no basic sanitation compared to those with basic sanitation at home. 20% higher in households where water services is outside the home yard, in the yard, for example. The observation supports a need to address basic sanitation and safe water problems to reduce prevalence of chronic malnutrition and promote comprehensive child development. It's worth mentioning that the micro-irrigation projects left Niagua and became a more ambitious irrigation program called Mi Riego. Well, the Bolivian drinking water and sanitation sector has set the target to universal access to water and sanitation. Main documents of the sectoral policy are Government Law Towards 2025 in specific Pillar 2, Universalization of Services, 100 of Bolivians have water and several services. Pillar 9, Environmental Sovereignty, the state of Bolivia promotes and develops effective actions by reducing water bodies contamination. Well, the next steps, sustainability must be reinforced, regulatory efforts along with municipal bodies to ensure water safety management. Aggregation and association of water committees can enhance services sustainability, a pilot program under design. The implementing unit, the National Fund for Productive and Social Investment, Fondo Nacional de Inversión Productiva y Social, has accrued good administrative and technical capacity to manage large number of projects. With the data obtained from 4 and 5 programs and the growing up with the safe waters, we will have real statistics of the achievements made in water quality and how they improve health. Continue with the measures of the adaptations to climate changes, such as protection of water sources, micro-measurements, household level and environmental management plans. Bolivia has gained important progresses in access to basic services, but significant differences still persist, especially in rural sanitation. For this reason, a new sanitation program is in preparation by CAF, including components on hygiene and nutrition. Well, thank you for your attention, and we await your comments.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I hope the technology, we have a very rudimentary platform, and I hope it worked at least not satisfactory, but a little bit. Osvaldo, thank you, and Franz, so much for this presentation. I hope that we can come back to questions in a minute whilst we move on to our next presentation, scaling water smart agriculture to improve productivity and resilience for rain-fed smallholder production systems in Mesoamerica. Marie, will you share your presentation from your screen?
Yes.
Please, you're welcome.
Okay, do you see that in presentation mode now?
Yes, it looks
Great.
fine. Thank you.
Okay.
I would ask, please, everybody to mute their microphones. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Marie Termel. I'm an agronomist soil scientist from Catholic Relief Services, and I'm going to be discussing how farmers in the dry corridor of Central America are managing their soil to manage water for climate resilience. And I'll start by introducing the area where we work and the challenges that farmers are facing in the dry corridor. An estimated 74% of agricultural soils are degraded due to poor management. Most food grains are produced in rain-fed systems, and water is one of the main limiting factors. Rainfall in the region is becoming increasingly variable, and while total annual precipitation is usually between 800 and 1500 millimeters, it's poorly distributed throughout the growing season. The rainfall pattern follows a bimodal distribution with a dry spell in the middle of the growing season known as the canicula, which is frequently prolonged, leading to yield damage and even complete crop loss in severe drought years. In the recent years, the region has experienced devastating droughts. After the drought in 2016, 1.6 million people were left food insecure, and then 2 years later, another drought occurred where 2.2 million farm families were affected by yield loss and 1.4 million left food insecure. Thus, climate and soil degradation are major drivers of poverty and food insecurity in the region. Green water is the water that is available for in the soil for plant production. In rain-fed systems, part of the water that falls in the rain will be lost in runoff, evaporation, and part will infiltrate into the soil and become green water available for production. Degraded soils tend to be compacted without cover. They lose a lot of water in runoff, less is infiltrated. They're also lower in soil organic matter, have poor structure, less water is stored as green water. Whereas in healthy soils, they infiltrate more green water, which means the crop is less affected by periods without rain, and they hold on to water, and overall rainwater productivity of the system is improved. And water smart agriculture practices can restore and improve the potential of soils to build up the system's productivity and store green water. WSA takes an integrated approach combining soil fertility management, permanent soil cover and residue and cover crops to build up soil organic matter, improve soil structure and moisture retention. And combining these practices ensures short and long-term gains for farmers, both improving productivity and drought resilience. So the Water Smart Agriculture Program has established over 3,000 side-by-side innovation plots in grains, coffee, and pastures to build evidence of the impacts of WSA on productivity, income, and water and soil indicators. We also use these plots to adapt practices to local conditions, refine technical recommendations, and they're central to our farmer field schools to promote widespread adoption of the practices. So it takes several years of intensive restoration efforts that include soil fertility management, increasing biomass inputs, minimizing soil disturbance, maintaining continuous soil cover with crop residue or cover crops to begin to build up soil organic matter. And in our trials in Nicaragua, we compare WSA with a conventional system with tillage, no crop residue, or cover crops, poor soil fertility management. And contrasting these different practices, we showed that within the first 4 years of conversion to water smart agriculture practices, there was an average of 0.19% soil organic carbon buildup per year, and this is approximately 1.8 tons of carbon per hectare per year. So these are very exciting results showing that major improvements in soil relatively short time using simple agronomic practices that are accessible to farmers. These changes in soil health translate into greater soil moisture retention and climate resilience. In 2018, the dry corridor experienced a severe drought. The map shows the average July precipitation compared to the 2018 when the region received less than half of the rainfall, and some areas even went 20 to 45 days without any rain. This drought was the first test of WSA performance under extreme weather, and we found that soil health and the crop residue retention in the WSA plots was key for retaining moisture during the drought in the middle of the growing season after initial good rains in June. So under the drought conditions, WSA plots had an average of 26% more moisture during the canicula, and in this occurred during the early reproductive stage of the maize, which then had an impact on yield, resulting in a 39% higher yields than the comparison. So WSA increases yields, and over the past 4 years, of course, yields have gone up and down with following the patterns in rainfall, but they've been consistently higher than the comparison conventional practices. And as soil is restored and farmers fine-tune their WSA management, yield response continues to increase. So comparing the first year in 2016 with after 4 years in 2019, which these years had similarly low, relatively low rainfall, we can see that the comparison yield remained quite similar, whereas the WSA yield went from being 21% higher in 2016 then to 40% higher by 2019. And despite the poor rainfall in 2019, yields reached 3.5 tons per hectare compared to only 2.5 in the comparison. So we're seeing these similar improvements in beans also, growing from 28% increase to 52% increase by 2019. And yields in 2019 were 1.6 tons per hectare, which was considered an excellent yield for smallholders in the region, and was over half a ton higher than the comparison. So using these practices, smallholders are getting closer to reaching what is considered the rain-fed yield potential for the region. And now the average family in Central America needs around 1 ton of maize per hectare per year to meet their minimal food requirements. And this is a major challenge for many farmers, especially those that are farming less than 1 hectare of land. And results from 2018 drought showed that many farmers that were limited by water and soil fertility conditions couldn't meet this minimum production level using their current practices. Whereas when they used WSA practices, the average yields were above this critical threshold in the drought year, showing that WSA has potential to improve food security in the region. And these yield improvements also translate into greater income. The average total income of a maize bean system has doubled with WSA. So these improvements in soil health and water translate into improved rainwater productivity, which is the volume of crop produced per amount of rainfall, essentially the amount of crop per drop that is an indicator of how efficiently an agricultural system uses rainwater. So both yields and rainwater productivity have increased, and the medium term positive feedback from WSA from practices such as conservation agriculture and cover crops that take some time to build up soil organic carbon and improve soil health and soil moisture. And rainwater productivity has climbed from 21% in the first year, mainly due to improvements in crop nutrition. And then as soil health is improved and farmers fine-tune their practices, it's increased to 40% by 2019. So these results demonstrate that simple water-smart agriculture practices have the potential to improve productivity, economic viability, and resilience of smallholder rain-fed systems in Central America. Now, the WSA program's goal is to achieve transformation at scale, which requires the commitment and collaboration of key agricultural institutions in each country. The scaling strategy involves strengthening and directing support services, programs, education, and extension in WSA to provide farmers with the key services they need to restore their soil and water resources. This means building capacity at multiple levels, including ministries of ag and environment, local municipal governments, research institutes, local and international NGOs, cooperatives, farmer organizations, as well as with private sector partners. Some of the key initiatives are reforming the educational curriculums to include WSA competencies, including community and national technical schools, and initiating a Central American master's level program in soil and water management. We're also developing national digital soil mapping capacity in institutions in Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Guatemala, which to date has resulted in 32,000 hectares of land being mapped for decision-making at the national levels and in regional programs. We're working to strengthen extension systems around soil and water management through a training of trainer initiatives and farmer field schools in both coffee and grain systems that have reached 90,000 farmers to date. And working to scale WSA practices across entire watersheds in the Raíces program in El Salvador. Overall, there are at least 90 institutions that are incorporating WSA tools, methodologies, and strategies into their programs, and are now immersed in the scaling process. So to finish up, some main takeaways. Our on-farm research shows that water-smart agriculture practices can improve soil and water, soil, water, and crop nutrition and lead to substantial gains for smallholders in the short and medium term. WSA farmers are producing more, they're earning more, and they're more resilient to drought, and WSA has the potential to mitigate the impacts of changing climatic conditions and improve food security in the region through land restoration. And in 5 years, a relatively short time, the WSA program has engaged with key agricultural institutions, both in research and practice, to catalyze the institutionalization of water-smart agriculture approaches, methodologies, and services for farmers, and build a strong foundation for scaling WSA in Central America and also Southern Mexico. And this experience shows the importance of developing coalitions and partnerships. However, many multi-actor platforms have integrated WSA goals into their strategies and planning, but they still require additional support to successfully put those plans into action and sustain them over time. Although key institutions are on board, they still need continued support and additional investment to increase their capacity and reach their potential. So to address this, the next phase in the WSA program is a platform to provide continued support and coordination, further build capacity, and to attract investment. I'd like to recognize the incredible team of CRS colleagues, partner organizations, and of course the farmers that are responsible for this work. And thank you to the Buffett Foundation for their support. And please feel free to contact me for more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie, and thank you for that interesting case of scaling water smart agriculture for smallholder farmers. Now, I would like to invite our third speaker, Bruce Wonkunda, who's the Water Sustainability Manager at Water for People. Bruce, are you with us?
Yes, I'm there.
I have a question for Maria, please, if she could answer it, if that's okay with you. Janie Barron.
Yeah, thanks. We will take the question after all the three presenters in due time. Okay, thank you. Please write your question in the chat and our team will facilitate. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Please, Bruce, would you like to share from your end in Rwanda tonight?
Sure.
Wakanda forever.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Bruce Wonkunda, as Jenny said. I'm from Water for People, Rwanda, and I'm going to share with you our experience in building resilience through local government water resource planning. And it's a pleasure for me to attend this year World Water Week at home. So, Water for People is an international non-profit organization working in 9 countries around the world with a vision of a world where no one suffers from a lack of access to wash services. In Rwanda, we started in 2008. Initially, we started with 2 districts, but after a successful implementation in one of the rural districts, the government requested us to extend our interventions in another district. Currently, we have 2 largest programs in rural, and we have the Gicumbi Wash Program. We don't work alone. We work with the government, both central and local government, but also with the community to implement all our interventions on the ground. We also work with other partners funded by other developing partners to implement similar projects in other parts of the country. But we also support the government in replicating all our success or our experiences in our. So we work through an everyone forever approach, which means every school, every community, every household should have access to safe, clean drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene. And that service should last forever. How do we do that? We normally set criteria and we monitor those criteria on an annual basis. And we monitor to see what is the progress we are making. If we can't reach, if we are not reaching a criteria or a milestone, we have to go back and redefine and revisit our interventions. So we have criteria for both everyone, which is mostly the hardware, the infrastructure part, and we have the forever part, which is mostly related to service monitoring, service delivery, but of course, and mainly water resource management. Once we have achieved all those criteria we have set, we have now, and then we can go into an exit phase. We can't exit any district if a district have not reached all those criteria under the everyone and forever approach. So the way we work is that we don't work alone. We don't fund everything alone. The ownership. We have a co-financing mechanism where the government involved in the interventions. We have Water for People providing 55%, the central government providing 30%, and the district providing 15% on behalf of the community. This is done through a joint planning on an annual basis. We agree on the activity to be implemented. We implement together and we monitor together. Now, despite all those investment, all those good planning and those good things, we still have challenges. We were investing so much money, but we are seeing the level of service for water was not increasing. One of the reasons was that there was no water in the pipes sometimes, and this is caused by highly engineering systems that we implement. Most of you, I don't know if most of you are familiar with our country. It is called the country of 1,000 hills. We have so many hills, the topography is up and down. So we have to build engineering gravity or pump fed systems, which sometimes are out of water during the dry season, or sometimes faces landslides due to changing the rainfall patterns. But also we have socioeconomic development that puts a lot of pressure on the ecosystem where people are cultivating or constructing and are sometimes getting near the water sources. And of course, all of this sometimes is done through inappropriate practices. So what was the solution? Water for People, together with the district, we said that we cannot continue to invest this if we can't protect the water sources, where the water is coming from. So we decided to conduct a water resource management plan in both our two rural districts. And the results illustrated that appropriate way forward to understand the demands versus the sources, the water we get in for the sources, and what could be their measures that's needed to be implemented to have water quality and quantity in a sustainable manner. The methodology we used was that it was a two-step assessment or phase. So firstly, we did a water resource inventory. What are the water resources present in the district? We mapped them, and we did the water quantity assessment and water quality. And then we compared with the demand, and we did a water demand analysis. From that, we also developed a water resource management plan. And this was done through a participatory approach involving the districts, the community, and all the organizations involved. So for the after mapping, we also did land classification based on the soil depth and the slope categories, and we provided category from each for the entire district. And then for each category, we assigned a low to a very high interventions. This was done through land husbandry techniques. For low, we provided croplands. For medium, forest plantations. High, we provided a mix of rangelands and croplands. And for very high, we provided natural forests. For people who are familiar with water resource management measures, this is very familiar to you. And then for after identifying, classifying the land, we determined our climatic zones, and we defined what will be the appropriate measures that can be implemented for each classification unit that we have developed. So for the water quantity and quality, we did quantity measurements, both during the dry season and the rain season. And then we did the projection for the 25 years with a scenario of a 5-year assessment. For the water quality, we measured the following parameter: pH, turbidity, total coliforms, total phosphorus, total nitrogen, iron, and manganese. These were selected because these are mostly the parameters that are of concerns in our country. So these are the results. For the mapping and inventory of all the water sources, for the first district, we got 142 sources that were grouped or delineated into 7 recharge catchments. You can see the colors. The green dots are the water sources, which are springs, and different color, the catchment colors are the recharge catchment colors, delineated, water source catchment delineated. For the second district, we got 87 water sources grouped under 22 recharge catchment. Regarding the quantity, based on the 25-year projection with 5 scenarios, we did an assessment, and we realized that for both districts, if there are no measures taken, most of the sectors, most of the administrative entities will are actually facing a shortage in terms of water demand. And if there's nothing done, this will continue, and you can see for some districts, we were having a very high deficit. For the water quality, only total coliforms and pH were observed to be critical. And this is mainly done because our land is very acid, and the total coliforms were associated to people practicing livestock and discharging toilet waste in their farms. So after that, we then developed the measures based on resource water recharge catchment. Most of the measures provided or recommended were agroforestry with terraces, with cut-off drains, with radical terraces, with forest plantation, with natural forests. This is an example of one of the catchment in one of the districts. It was observed that it has a dominance of deep soil, and with a combination of high slope. Then the catchment was suitable for only radical terraces, which is mostly resilient in the area, and we provided cropland and rangeland. But also in some areas, we provided forestry that covers almost 5,000 hectares. So we also provided measures to protect the immediate catchment, to put diversion ditches, fences, planting grass, eucalyptus, and progressive terraces, and also installing pH regulator to regulate the pH, which was very low and very acidic. So in a summary, for both districts, we came up with a costing for all the water resource management for all the recharge catchment identified. For Gicumbi district, it was around 79 million USD. For Rulindo, it was 27 million. Those measures are now being implemented by the district through their annual plan, or in partnership with other partners, like the Global Climate Fund is funding Gicumbi district. This is in line with the term like all on board. Once we have the plan, once we have what is needed, it is easy to bring people, and it is easy to mobilize people to implement together. So the measures for the immediate source catchment, the fences and everything, are now being implemented as part of the infrastructure development. We're also working in partnership with the district to do the planning, and this has led to actionable measures with the control of the local government. Thank you for your attention, and questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. That's a very exciting examples of combining engineering infrastructure and natural-based solutions to secure water supply for rural populations. We'll have to wait with the questions. We're running out of time in our sessions, but what we will do, first of all, I want to profoundly apologize for the session intervention that happened, and I hope that you accept my apologies for that to happen, which was not at all nice, both to the presenter and to the audience. We will move on to Dr. Claudia Ringler, Deputy Director of Environment and Production Technology Division at IFPRI, who will present and just pitch the WASAG working global framework for water scarcity in agriculture, and the working group on water and nutrition, where there is a community of practice of researchers, development workers, and development agents that are continuing to keep a dialogue on this cross-sectoral issue of this session around water security and food and nutrition security and development. Claudia, will you present from your computer? No? Okay, I'll share my screen and find the presentation.
Great, yes, great if you could do it. If not, I'll do it. But yeah, so just quickly, why a working group on water and nutrition under this WASAG framework? The Sustainable Development Goals on water and on zero hunger can simply only be achieved if the water and nutrition communities work more closely together. And why the two goals are simply too closely interlinked. All these presentations you have just heard, so water for irrigation, soil water management, for food security, wash for health, and also for nutrition. So all of these activities have to happen jointly to really reach poor women and men who face deprivations on both water and food. And so we just can't continue to work separately here. So what does this working group on water and nutrition do? It provides new research insights on water and nutrition linkages. It generates awareness and uses advocacy around water and nutrition productivity, facilitates a cross-sectoral community of practice. So anyone who wants to learn more from the other community is invited. It also develops tools to support action on water nutrition linkages. And there's a series of commitments that this WASAC group has developed. And this working group also supports these commitments. And finally, it tries to influence other relevant policy processes, including the UN Water and Nutrition Decades. Next slide, please. So what are we trying to do, and how can you engage in the working group on water and nutrition? We're basically really looking for anyone and everyone who's interested in engaging in dialogue, in engaging in awareness raising, in engaging in influencing policy. We currently have 2 very active work streams on action-oriented policy node development. And so all of these case studies that were presented earlier today would really fit very nicely in this series. And we're also developing a special issue. Again, both case studies would also fit into this special issue. But also, if you like to do outreach, networking, and other forms of policy influence, you're certainly also invited to participate. And how to join, there is a website. If you type in WASAC Water Nutrition, you should be able to find it. But also you can contact the co-leads, which are myself, and the email address is here. Also Jenny Barron, who you see as well here, and who's chairing this session, and finally Jan Lundqvist. And so I hope that we have a lot more members joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Claudia. And with this, we have reached the end of our session today. I'd just like to once again thank the audience, our presenters here today, and especially to our co-conveners, the Development Bank of Latin America, CAF, and the Catholic Relief Services, and CV, of course, who supported this main session of the program. The presentations and the session report will be available on the CV World Water Week at Home webpage of the session in a few days, together with a summary report of the session. And we will include your questions in that, and hopefully get also responses written into that report from our presenters. So we haven't lost your questions, and we hope to keep on engaging on these issues in the future. And with that, I'll just like to thank you all again and close the session. Thank you so much.